Okay, so first off, the cinematography here is going to be a little shitty. Um, this is going to be a long one, and so I figured I would just get into a position that I felt like I could stay in for a while. Um, so as much as I dread having this conversation, I realize that it's being had around me regardless of whether I participate or not. And so I decided that I would just put my 2 cents out there. That's an understatement. As I said, this is going to be a long one. Uh, well, right off the bat, I think it should be pretty universally agreed upon the fact that, of course, this was an act of indescribable evil. I don't really have any other words for it. Um, that's about the only way I know to put it. Um, So, of course, I'm not arguing to the contrary. I figure that's a pretty well established thing, and I don't necessarily need to go off on that particular tangent, at least not yet. Because I do have a lot of anger over what happened um, that I'm choosing to set aside at the moment in order to talk about some other pertinent points that I feel are not being made or not being given any attention when they ought to be. This whole thing has spurred me chiming in on this because I was scrolling through the front page on YouTube, and in my recommended there was this whole section about, like, current events or whatever, and it was all about the Nashville shooting. And I clicked on one of the videos, and the comments were about what you would expect as soon as the news came out that the shooter was trans, or at least appears to have been. Um, and it drives me fucking insane. It really does. Like, for example, one of them thought they were being really smart and had come up with a list of 4 mass shooters ever that were trans or are alleged to have been trans, and was like, "Do you see the pattern here?" And it's like, "No, the fuck I don't." That's 4 out of hundreds in just the past decade. Um, Try a little harder, Jesus fucking Christ. And that's just the problem. Is that this was an evil fucking act, and it's going to be used as a catalyst to justify more evil against people who had nothing to do with it. Um, that's just the simple fact of the matter. And it especially fucking irks me, by the way, as someone who is a gun owner and believes in, say, the right to self defense, for example. It especially bothers me that, like, the mainstream left is going to say, well, clearly this is a gun thing. The right is going to be, no, this is because they were trans, and so we're both just going to be shit flinging at each other over partisan shit. Meanwhile, no matter which side wins, or if both get something pushed through, it's going to just expand the ability for the government to overreach into private citizens' lives. And that is going to be considered a victory, or at least at first, until it inevitably comes back around, much like the Patriot Act, and becomes just another way for our rights and our privacies to be invaded on a regular basis. And by then, we'll be okay with it, because it's like the frog in a pot of water. You don't dump the frogs directly into boiling water. You put them in when the water's room temperature, and you slowly crank the heat up. They won't notice a thing until they're fucking dead. And so, yeah, considering that this happened alongside the spate of recent bills being passed around, some of them making it actually being passed and made into law, some of them failing. There's a lot of them aimed at attacking trans healthcare, and then this happens in light of that, and in light of this conservative conspiracy theory about drag queens being like a pedophile ring, as if I mean, we had the Pizzagate thing, and fuck, what was it, the website that like sells furniture or something, I forget what it's fucking called, but do you remember that when like they were selling exorbitantly expensive like cabinets or something, and people thought it was human trafficking, like they were selling children inside the cabinets or something? Like Wayfair, that's what it was. I don't see how they still keep falling for this shit. I mean, especially because like I mean the Jeffrey Epstein thing was real. And we have real pictures too of Donald Trump hanging around with the guy. And that doesn't really get any attention. That gets hand waved away, explained away somehow. But the Wayfair thing, they totally bought that. That was definitely legit. I don't fucking get it. I don't understand. It's so fucking stupid. It feels like the right can just point to anything they don't like and say pedophile, and the fan base just immediately is like, okay, absolutely, it's fucking confirmed. I do not need evidence. And it's the worst. It's the fucking worst. And so that's all this is gonna be, is the fucking wave of backlash going on right now, the culture war situation. This is just gonna be more fuel for the fire. And I hope that the shooter, that absolute fucking piece of shit, realizes that if they were actually trans, and that if that meant anything to them, that they've set trans rights back at least a few decades with this one fucking action, is all that they did. And that's another thing that bothers me about all this, and something that I've thought about a lot for years now. Over a decade, this has been like stewing in the back of my head, just thinking like, what the fuck makes these people tick? Because it's not a trans thing. And it's not a gun thing either. The AR-15 has been on the civilian market since at least the 19 fucking 60s. And this is a problem now. It hasn't been a problem since the 60s. We weren't having hundreds of mass shootings every year in the fucking 1960s when people could first start to buy AR-15s. So what is going on? What is it that's causing this shit? And I mean, clearly, part of it is like a social contagion situation where like the Columbine shooters were like the big one where people like kind of romanticized them as like tragic anti-heroes, which was total bullshit. We know now that at least Eric Harris wasn't fucking bullied. Eric Harris was a bully. We know that now. At least anybody who knows their shit, anybody who's actually read up on what really fucking happened. But regardless, it's too late. That got sucked into the mainstream as like, oh, these were these abused, outcast loner kids that were shunned by society and they took revenge. And it's just fucking stupid. It's mythological. And that's the whole thing, is like, it's like a revenge thing, sort of. Like, it really feels like mass shooters are people who would just kill themselves, but instead of like internalizing any of the blame and looking at their own shortcomings or something, they get angry at the world and they think that it's somebody else's fault, totally not theirs, that their life is fucked. And so they decide that not only are they going to kill themselves, but they're going to take revenge on society. But I'll be right back. The fucking fact of the matter is, you're not taking revenge on society when you do one of these things. Society is an idea. It's not actually necessarily a real thing. It's a term that we use to describe the way that hundreds, thousands, millions of individuals interact with each other. And the thing is, these kill people. They kill individuals. Society is lots of individuals. And so the fact of the matter is, and of course you can say, oh, it's a terrorist thing, right? It's about spreading a message or whatever. And it's fucking bullshit. I mean, quite frankly, terrorism is not a very successful avenue of action to begin with, by the way. If you want to look at, for example, the Islamic State, how they're doing, that turned out really great for them, didn't it? They were great at sending a message, but did it really get them anywhere? And the Taliban in Afghanistan, it was not terrorism necessarily that got them their victory. It was about fighting a brutal war of attrition against an occupying force, which really you don't even have to fight very hard. You just have to keep dying, and eventually you'll wear them out. That's what happened there. Terrorism really didn't contribute to their cause much at all. They probably could have just taken fucking Afghanistan and not had any resistance on our part if they hadn't have done shit like the terrorist acts that enraged the American voter base enough to, at least for a time, throw themselves into the conflict. Because when a lot of you are too young to remember, but when Bush first got involved in all that bullshit, people were actually all for it for a while there. A lot of people, a lot. Definitely a large majority of the country were all for it until it actually, got underway and people started to see the reality of the situation. But people were pissed off. They wanted revenge. And you can see what it got them. Fact of the matter is, like I said, I feel like mass shooters are kind of like an externalized suicide. And I think a lot of the times, isolation plays a huge role in this, because I feel like a lot of these people also kind of lose contact with reality altogether. Because if you think about it rationally, it makes no fucking sense. It really is the dumbest fucking thing you could ever do. Because like I said, this fucking dumb shit stain that did the Nashville shooting set back the trans community for fucking forever. I'm genuinely afraid they're going to start coming door to door and rounding people like me up, because we're going to get conflated with the fucking Nashville shooter and this pedophile conspiracy theory around drag queens. And they're already trying to fucking take away our hormones and shit. And it's just like, yeah, I'm wondering if I should go to another country now. I can't fucking afford to, but I might have to just go be homeless somewhere that is not the United States at this fucking rate. And so that's what they've bought. They have caused immense pain to their own family and friends and the trans community. And of course, most of all, the victims, the survivors, the families surrounding them. And for what? What did it get them? Their fucking 5 minutes of a spotlight for the whole world to see what a fucking dumb asshole they were? Great. Fantastic. I'm sure it was fucking worth it. It's so fucking stupid. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And so I really think you have to be at least a little disconnected from reality. The problem is people bring up mental health every time there's one of these, and they'll act like there's a specific diagnosis. Like, oh, if you have mass shooter syndrome, then you should be in a mental hospital. It's not a syndrome. And these people are not necessarily insane, technically. And I know the thing that everybody fucking says is, well, no one in their right mind would do this. Morality is not necessarily like a psychological condition. Being evil and dumb is not in the fucking DSM-5, and it's not going to be. I'm sorry. The fact of the matter is, this is not a single diagnosable condition. This is a set of circumstances, tendencies. Maybe there might be some kind of a profile. I don't know. I know mass shooters are generally male, and that's about as far as we've gotten as far as a profile goes. But a lot of the times I feel like they are weird fucking loners that they live with their parents, or they just moved out from their parents. They're young, they're still getting started in the world, they have no sense of direction, no idea of what they're doing. And a lot of them clearly seem to feel that their life is already ruined or somehow just unworkable. And they decide, instead of just killing themselves, that they should bring random fucking strangers down with them, as part of that aforementioned sort of social revenge. And it just, yeah, if you think about it logically, it makes no fucking sense, because you're accomplishing nothing. And I mean, if you want people to remember you, why do a mass shooting? You could just post your suicide tape on YouTube and it would go viral within like a day of you shooting yourself. And so that way, you don't taint your soul, and you go out as maybe not quite a hero, but you're like a tragic victim of circumstance. And people will still remember you. You'll still be famous. You have the viral suicide video on YouTube. And you won't be a fucking child murderer that everybody fucking hates. And I swear to God, if there is a hell, I know I'm going there. And I just hope I get a turn to pour molten tungsten down this little fucking turd's throat at least once or twice over the course of eternity. God, what a piece of shit. I'm so pissed off. Because it's just such a lose-lose situation. Because this dumbass happened to be trans, and I'm also kind of, I'm not actually trans. I'm just like a fucking cross-dresser, basically. I'm a femboy, if you want to call it that. That's it. I still consider myself male, as much as like people come into my fucking comments on random videos that have nothing to do with my transness and say shit like, you will never be a woman. And it's like, cool, I never professed to be, dumbass. Fucking stupid. So yeah, just because I happen to have one fucking thing sort of in common with this person, it was a trans man, not a trans woman. I'm neither, but I would be closer to a trans woman. I just happen to be sort of tangentially from a similar subculture as this fucking moron. And because of what they did, I get to be painted with that brush of fucking dog shit that they left for the world with their fucking horrid actions. And I'm gonna suffer that. I'm gonna suffer the fucking consequences that this absolute dipshit didn't have the balls to stand and face. And I question the point of it all, to be honest. I'm starting to lose a lot of hope about life as someone who is sort of like visibly queer. Yeah, like I said, I wonder if maybe I should be working on learning another language right now and seeing if there's somewhere I can go that won't just turn around and follow America's example. Because this is just, it's starting to feel like a fucking, like a game of Monopoly or whatever, where you're way the fuck in the hole and everybody else is still competing, but you're basically already out of the game. So why keep playing? And that's how I'm starting to feel right now. Not that any of this is, not that I matter for a fucking thing, but that's just the sad fucking truth of it, is just as a side effect, a consequence of some random asshole stranger doing something stupid as fuck. A bunch of people are going to pay the price for it, beyond those that have already paid the ultimate price for it. And I really wish they would have just taken themselves out and just called it a fucking day there. If you're thinking about doing any fucking dumb shit like this, let me tell you, don't get help. But if you refuse to get help and your mind cannot be changed, save yourself some money and get a single shot shotgun. Because the problem you're having only takes one of these to solve. And the rest of us can just go about our fucking day. It's going to be the same for you either way. So, why fuck over a bunch of random people who are probably facing a lot of the same fucking problems that you are? Fuck ass.